So good afternoon, everyone. This is James Netz again with another podcast this afternoon from the Sawyer County LCO Economic Development Corporation. We are absolutely honored to have with us today Susan Fibert, commercial lender from People's Bank Midwest in downtown Hayward. Welcome, Susan. We appreciate your time ahead of time already to speak with the folks today about what you do and all the different things that you do greatly at People's Bank Midwest.
Well, thanks, Jim. I appreciate it. It's been a fun privilege to be working alongside with you guys throughout all of this PPP process. And I know a lot of businesses have utilized your services and your level of expertise as they try to navigate their way through this ever-changing SBA process as well. So thank you for all that you guys do for the community as well.
Well, I got that $20 for you when this is all over for saying such kind things. I appreciate that.
Excellent. I'll take you up on that later.
Got it.
Yes. Well, part of my role with People's Bank Midwest I've been with the bank for 5 years. Prior to that, I worked with the Chamber of Commerce and Cable for 14 years. And prior to that, I was born and raised on a family resort up on Lake Nemacolin. So to say that I have a pulse for the community that we live in is pretty spot on. That's part of the reason why my choice of coming to People's Bank Midwest and taking on this role as commercial lender was a natural reaction for me. I thrive to be a part of the community and being a part of working with businesses through their successes, through their struggles. And this PPP process is most definitely part of that, mostly for these small businesses that are in our neck of the woods. We are suffering tremendously from the downturn of the economy, and the PPP process was a huge step in helping us bounce back from that. So from March 27th, when the CARES Act was signed and everything started rolling, my life kind of flipped upside down for a couple months even. I think a lot of the lenders in the community might think the exact same thing, but it was all good. We have gotten our feet on the ground and have quickly navigated our way through the ever-changing process of it. But, on April 3rd was when we started accepting applications from businesses in the Sawyer County, Bayfield County area. We service all of the footprint of the Hayward area, so cover Sawyer County, Bayfield County, Washburn County, a little bit of all corners here. So we have been a part of retaining 800 jobs through the Payroll Protection Program loans that we have been able to approve and disperse.
And that's 800, is that 800?
800 jobs.
Just in Sawyer County?
That's nope. That would be any of the loans that we have approved through our bank. So Again, that would be some jobs in Bayfield County, Sawyer County, Washburn County, since we service all of those, and that's the footprint of the bank. So
yeah, and I want to back you up just a little bit, Susan. You kind of talked about where you came from and some of the jobs that you've had here in the area, and you really have proven your passion and loyal to not only Sawyer County, but Bayfield County as well. And I've had the pleasure of working with your expertise, not only at the Chamber Cable or the Cable Chamber, but also at People's Bank Midwest. And your professionalism and customer service is second to none.
Well, thank you for that. It's a passion that I definitely take a lot of pride in, and I have mom and dad that stand behind me and a husband that's always there to remind me to smile, because it's always a struggle one way or the other, and other people's challenges are more important than ours from time to time, and I definitely try my very best to put that foot forward at all times.
Yep, and we appreciate that.
Yeah.
So we were on the track of 800 jobs that were retained in that came through your bank. So sorry I cut you short on that. If you want to continue on that subject, that would be great.
Oh, sure, absolutely. So that's just the last review that we did. And so that's probably 4 weeks ago or so. We're still continuing to see some applications come through from businesses that have thought, we're doing okay. But now that the season has started for many of these businesses, some of them are realizing, you know what, let's still apply, and we are still accepting applications. They have extended the PPP funds through August 8th, in fact, so that time frame has opened up a little bit longer for any businesses that still want to take advantage of the payroll protection program. We've seen a couple of changes in the past 4 weeks or so in regards to how those PPP loan funds can be used. One of the big things that I'd like to point out to anybody that's listening to the podcast is in regards to the 75% rule that was originally put out of how your funds had to be spent on payroll. Since then, they have now lowered that down to a 60% must be spent on payroll. And so those payroll expenses are your gross wages. It also includes your paid and sick leave for your employees, health care contributions to help offset their the health insurance as well. So that's a big change that has given our borrowers a little bit more breathing room. Obviously, how this loan was originated was based upon your payroll in 2019. So it's easy that some of these businesses could spend 100% of it on payroll. Other ones might have been a little bit nervous about the time of the year, how much staff you actually have on for payroll right now, and so forth. So by lowering that down to a 60% window, that's helped a lot of our businesses with a little bit of that breathing room. Now, keep in mind that other percentage, there's now 40% that you can spend on other expenses for the business. Some of those expenses can be your mortgage interest. It's not the principal portion of your mortgage interest or your mortgage payment, solely the mortgage interest. You can use your rent to go into that. So say you own the real estate and the business pays rent to a separate entity. You can use your rent payments. You can pay your utilities. You can pay your electric bill, your water, your sewer, your propane. All of those are fall into that category of the other expenses. So they have loosened up some of these restrictions that we originally saw back in March when this first rolled out. So it's definitely a good idea to be in contact with your lender that helped you with this PPP and be talking to them about what expenses are now allowable under these forgiveness terms. So great things that SBA has continued to change, but somewhat hard for the lender side to keep up on those constant changes. And so bear with us if you call your lender and they say, you know what, I haven't heard about that change. Let me dig into it and I'll get back to you, because a few of us are still doing that because things are changing on a regular basis.
Right. And it really is great news that they've extended the application out into, what did you say, August 8th?
August 8th, yep.
Yep, and that's good news, because the horizon or the forecast right now of the COVID virus pandemic is not the brightest, and we're going into the fall season quickly up here. So I would certainly encourage anybody that was on the fence in the first round and even in the second round, if you have not applied for the PPP loan, I highly suggest that you contact someone like Susan Fibert at the People's Bank Midwest or similar SBA certified banks in the area, and really kind of check into it, because we may be moving into a second round of this, and having that loan in your back pocket is a good thing. And then with the potential of it being forgiven is an incredible opportunity for folks. And I know we've beaten that to a pulp in the past as well, but especially with an unknown future, we it's just great advice. I know even myself on a personal level, we went into it a little apprehensive because we didn't really know that much about it and what we would need and that kind of thing. But boy, I certainly am glad we did. And, even if you don't use the funds and, at the end of and correct me if I'm wrong, but if that money just sits in the bank during the 8 to 24, is it 24 weeks now, Susan?
It is. So they've extended it to 24 weeks, and that's eligible for all borrowers. It does not matter if you receive funding in the first round or the second round. If you need an additional time frame, you have now up to 24 weeks to spend those funds. That is correct.
Right, and have them forgiven. But even if it may be, and I'm certainly not a banker and I don't play one on the weekends, but my thought is, get the money, put it into a bank, and let it sit there. If you don't need it, don't use it, and just pay it back at the end of the term, whatever term that you decide that is most fits best for yourself. So I know that may sound like somebody's hoarding it, but at the same time, we got to keep our doors open.
That's absolutely right. And that's one of the things that we've been able to encourage our borrowers to do, or anybody that calls in that's inquiring about doing this. If you don't use it, you can pay it back, make a principal reduction for whatever amount of funds that you didn't use that are still in the checking account. There is no prepayment penalties to do so. I've had a couple of borrowers, in fact, that ended up being fortunate enough that they didn't have to use any of it, and we paid it all off. They owed, $2.04 in interest for that short amount of time that they had it, but they were extremely relieved to know that that was there if they needed it. And so definitely, if you, like you said, Jim, if you're on the fence in regards to it, just do it, because the funds are there for this purpose. And we want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to take advantage of it if they can. So that's a huge thing. Now, if you are going to use any of the funds for their not eligible expenses, so if you didn't use it on payroll, didn't use it on mortgage, when we're going to the forgiveness portion of this, we now have been advised by SBA that originally you had to pay it back at a 1% interest rate over a 2-year window. They have now also extended that window to 5 years. So now you have, if you aren't using those funds in the appropriate ways, which of course that's the purpose of the program, is to use them in the appropriate ways. But if something went askew and you only used 55% on payroll and then used 45% on other expenses, that 95% is going to be forgiven, and that remaining 5% is going to be amortized over a 5-year window at a 1% interest rate. So again, SBA still made that change and is making that payback schedule a lot easier for some of these small businesses to work with too.
Right. And businesses really should not be looking at the SBA PPP loans as a handout in any way, shape, or form. I mean, this pandemic is not anybody's fault, especially here in Sawyer County. So, and 1% on the non-forgivable portion. I don't know. In all the years that I've done business, 1% interest on a business loan is pretty cheap money.
Yeah, it is. That's not a normal thing. That's for sure.
And hopefully we never see another pandemic to be able to see interest rates like that, especially from a banker's perspective, right? But
exactly, there's a lot of work that goes into it for that 1% interest.
Right, but you had mentioned that one customer that they had taken a loan and then decided that they really didn't need it or a good portion of it, and they paid 2% or $2. I'm sorry. In interest on the non-forgivable portion, and $2 in insurance is pretty smart money.
Yeah, absolutely. And SBA has other loan programs that they've rolled out to help with businesses going through this as well, beyond the payroll protection program. SBA.gov is a great resource for anybody to use, and fairly easy to navigate as well. I've got it pulled up on my screen almost at any given time, just because I'm receiving so many phone calls. But SBA is offering low-interest, long-term loans to help offset some of the expenses for businesses that might not have been able to open due to employees not being able to come back, or their business isn't a need right now, but they still want to try to open up in the fall once this is over with. So SBA is still doing other things beyond the payroll protection program. One of the great things that they're doing, any loans that SBA is approved prior to this pandemic, they are paying 6 months interest and principal payments for the borrowers. So SBA, sometimes when we go into a loan closing with a borrower that's new to SBA and they have to pay the SBA fee, it's another fee, and so it's another expense that the business owners have to try to come up with when they're closing the loan. But right now, to know that SBA has their back and is making those 6 months interest and principal payments is a huge sense of relief for them. So not only is SBA doing this payroll protection program, but they've got other things rolling that's helping all of these small businesses across America too.
All right. What are you starting to see from a customer standpoint that have the PPP loans through People's Midwest Bank? Or what are some of the questions that you're getting, and how are you helping out the folks when they do contact you?
Well, right now, the first round of funding that was originally put out that April 3rd through April 16th window, they ended up using all of their funds, and a lot of these businesses are calling now wanting to start the forgiveness process. And what we're advising our clients at People's Bank Midwest is to hang tight. I know a lot of businesses want to get the paperwork off their desk, wrap up the details, because time disappears quickly. I mean, it's already midway through July, for heaven's sakes. And so a lot of these businesses don't want the clock to disappear on them and want to just wrap up this paperwork. But SBA is still working out the final details on the forgiveness portion of it. So hang tight, bear with your local lenders that you're dealing with, because we're waiting for direction on how to start processing these forgiveness applications. So we're happy to share the application with you and have you start filling it out, start collecting the material that we'll need to see to make the decision on the forgiveness. But we don't know where we're sending the applications to yet. We don't know a lot of the details that are important, that are key parts of this forgiveness process. So that's one of the big things that we're hearing from our borrowers right now. I'm getting multiple phone calls a day and emails, just wanting to, our borrowers wanting to keep that communication open as well and make sure that they're doing all of the right steps to receive the forgiveness. So that's just a big detail right now, is to bear with us as we're working out these final details. And as soon as we know, we're going to be sharing it with the masses.
Got it. And I know this guy that contacted you a couple days ago, I think, and was asking, how do we extend from the original, 8 weeks to, I believe, 24 weeks, and what's included and what isn't included. And a quick question would be, do you advise somebody goes out to the SBA site and try to extend their existing loan, or do you suggest that they get a hold of yourself or their lender from the if they used another bank? What do you suggest?
Well, actually, the great news for anybody is the 24-week period applies to all borrowers. So it doesn't matter if you received the funds prior to June 5th when they made this extension, or if you are just now going into the SBA payroll protection program process. So the 24-week window applies to everybody. You don't have to do a thing about it. That's a huge change that I think people need to be aware of. So you don't have to do anything. Any borrowers that have already gotten their funds or have used their funds completely, you now have 24 weeks to go through that forgiveness process application, or to use any of those funds if you have any remaining funds as well.
Wow, that's incredible. What other type of questions are you getting from your customers?
A lot of the questions that we're still receiving is what are eligible expenses, and those are details that are spelled out on the SBA's website. So I would highly suggest it's sba.gov, and then there's a great big yellow header on the very top of sba.gov's website that talks about COVID relief payments and COVID relief loans, and that will bring you right to another website that's part of the SBA's website, and that breaks down a lot lot of these frequently asked questions for you. I'm looking at right now an 18-page document that was updated as of June 25th, and it does break down a lot of these questions that these borrowers are asking. And this is where us as lenders are going to find our answers as well. So if you call in and you're asking us as a lender if this is eligible, and we have to say, well, let me dig into it and give you a call back, this is where we're going to. We're going to this SBA.gov website. So this is a huge resource that I would highly recommend anybody that has already used and applied and received funds for the payroll protection. Use SBA.gov. I'll make a side comment real quick that there are other sites out there that are SBA.com, SBA.net. The true site that you want to be using is SBA.gov. That is the authentic and only SBA true information that you're going to receive.
Got it. And you will also, I'm sure, would be more than welcome to answer people's phone calls and questions as well, right?
It sure is. It gives me more knowledge every time that I receive a question that I don't know myself. So as much as I have lots of things to juggle, it widens my knowledge on the program as well. So always happy to take phone calls and field questions about that because it helps me answer questions for the next person calling in as well.
So in kind of wrapping things up here, Susan, what's your top 3 things that you can give a Sawyer County business right now? I guess the first one would be any businesses that are thinking about doing a PPP loan, and then the second part of that would be, what's best advice to a business that currently has a PPP loan?
Sure, absolutely. Well, any businesses that are on the fence, I would definitely suggest talking to your accountant. And then if your accountant suggests it as well, then reach out to your local lender. Most of the banks in the community are still doing the SBA programs, but other ones might have decided that it's trickling down with the demand for it, so they might not be offering it. But give your local lender a call. SBA.gov also lists all of the lenders that are still doing the payroll protection program. So definitely look into how you're feeling about the season personally and on a business level. If you feel like this is something that you haven't taken advantage of before and you want a little bit of a security blanket going into maybe this phase 2 of COVID-19, I would suggest it. Dig into it, talk to your lender, talk to your accountant about that. To the second part of your question, I would definitely suggest to any of my borrowers, any of the other people that are out there that have received the PPP funds, keep copies of everything because we are not 100% sure on what documents we're going to need to go through the forgiveness. So support your local loggers, support your local mills, print off everything. That's a huge thing. We have we really don't know how much information we're going to need to see when it comes to the forgiveness. But if you can be really diligent about your record keeping as far as your payroll expenses, your utility bills, print off the bill, print off the confirmation of payment. If you're making mortgage payments, keep the billing notice that you receive from your financial institution every month that identifies how much of that payment was applied towards interest. If you're making rent payments, keep a copy of the cleared check that was cashed. Just record keeping, that's going to be a huge thing that's going to make everybody's life easier. If you're an Excel fan, start putting stuff in Excel, and that's going to be easier on the lender side when we start asking for information. If it's all summarized in one document for us, that's going to be a huge time saver for everybody involved.
And back up those hard drives, right? On where you have
Yes.
on your computers. I can't, with the IT background, just eliminate those single points of failures. And I can't emphasize enough, don't put things on thumb drives, put them, back up your computer to an external hard drive, because God forbid, we're talking about some significant money and you lose those records and things will not go well. So, anyways, that's my little advice for the day.
Huge
right?
details. Yes. No doubt about that. That's for sure.
Well, Susan, in closing, how do we get a hold of you? What's the best way to, do you have a website, email, phone? What's your main phone number? How do we get in touch with you?
All of the above. Well, a direct line here at the bank. You can always call myself and Mike Stamp, our market president. We're still running the SBA application, so either himself or myself would be happy to help you and give you directions. And our phone number here at the bank is 715-634-2674. You can reach me directly. My phone at the bank is 715-638-7117. We also have our website, pbmbank.com, and that will give you any links to all of our lenders that are servicing the Hayward branch as well as Eau Claire and the Venice Heights branch. So you can find our contact information out there. And last but not least, my email is sfibert@pbmbank.com, and I'm happy to respond to anybody that has any questions or needs some follow-up assistance.
You're awesome, Susan. We thank you for your time this afternoon. Again, Susan Fibert from People's Midwest Bank in downtown Hayward. Please give my kind regards to Mike Stamp, the president of the bank. We appreciate him allowing you to join us today. And again, thanks for your time. We appreciate it. Keep up the great work. And in closing, again, this is James Netz with the Sawyer County LCO Economic Development Corporation. We appreciate everybody's time and joining us this afternoon, and let us know if you've got any questions. Have a great day. Thanks again, Susan.